Alright, we are revisiting the Neptilius raid army for two major reasons. First, the Palpods are back in action, so big pals are now more viable as raid armies again. And the second thing is that Thalassonic Laser, as you see here, seems to have been fixed. So before it wasn't really doing full damage to raid bosses, now it really does seem to be doing full damage to raid bosses. It was just something bugged with the lines that was drawing on the map, not really causing the full explosions. So the reason I think Neptilius is probably the best raid army right now is that while Trigger Happy is still up there, this is the post-nerf Trigger Happy, Finsider Ignis just suffers from having lower stats. Neptilius will have this really strong Thalassonic Laser along with Holy Burst against the big bosses, and then just other strong skills against Libero, who doesn't really take the full damage from Holy Burst due to her floating hitbox, but you get that like Wall Splash Hydro Slicer with the same element bonus, and also having access to Lunker on top of that, with Thalassonic Laser is just a huge amount of damage on its own. Then Neptilius, as mentioned, with Finsider stats. Neptilius' second highest attack stat in the game at 145 attack stat, up there with Necromus just behind Libero and normal Bellanoir. Suffers a little bit in the bulk department and is a big pal, which was what made it not so good before against stuff like Xenolord Ultra. But now the pal pods are back, we really don't care about how bulky a pal is, as long as it doesn't get one-shot by everything, like Finsider does. If it only gets one-shot by one or two attacks, it's fine when you have the rescue pals doing their thing. So we're using Thalassonic Laser, Holy Burst, and Hydro Slicer here against Ryu, who is one of these huge hitbox pals. Now Wall Splash is supposed to do more DPS, but while they did fix the Thalassonic Laser and stuff like that, Wall Splash for some reason is appearing above the boss head for me this patch. So just something with Wall Splash seems a little bit bugged. Currently I'm running Hydro Slicer, not a huge downgrade. Hydro Slicer is a big burst damage thing, just a little bit lower on the overall DPS, but it doesn't hurt to just burst Ryu down to this stun phase really quickly. Just makes the fight a little bit easier overall there. And then just some unfortunate timing in this fight. I didn't want to redo too many fights, but sometimes you get this thing where he immediately dodges a couple of Holy Bursts. Otherwise he usually dies in that first Holy Burst phase. But just another wave of some Thalassonic Lasers, even if they are resisted, will get him down just quickly enough here as well. So still a very fast farm here. If you're doing like fruit farming, a pretty quick kill here at like 90 seconds something. So first, really strong attack against Libero. Can use any sort of the skill fruits there alongside. Thalassonic Laser doesn't seem bad against Libero. It does decent damage there. And then just absolutely huge damage against that Ryu. Against Xenolord, it's the same thing here. Thalassonic Laser, Holy Burst. And then trying out Absolute Frost. I don't think it blocked that much of the damage. Sometimes Absolute Frost, like you'll see it with Trigger Happy and Blast Cannon and stuff like that, it can block projectiles. So maybe it's something worth trying out. Like, it does get boosted by Lunker, which does boost the ice damage as well. But it might be better to just run something like Hydro Slicer anyway, if you see that Thalassonic Laser is missing a lot due to Absolute Frost. But I didn't really feel that coming out. And they don't really come out at the same time that often anyway. Now it does hurt to not have Meteor Rain, as you can see here, lots of ads going around, but it's not that bad. Like random Thalassonic Lasers and like Absolute Frost should take care of the ads on their own. You can see some manual rescuing as well. So Neptilius, just the overall strengths right now as a raid pal. It can use Lunker efficiently, gaining that bonus defense, getting Legend as well. So just a little bit added bulk. Not totally necessary now that we do have the pal pods. But it's just nice being able to boost this really strong Thalassonic Laser, Wall Splash, Hydro Slicer, and Absolute Frost if you're running those kind of skills. Another really good thing, you will see here during the Xenolord fight that PAL pods get lit on fire, causes the rescuing to go very badly. So you do want some water or some fire pals. So Neptilius Water Pal, great for that. And also it doesn't burn. So burn damage is very heavy on most of the raids, like Libero, Ryu, and Xenolord all burn your pals, a lot of damage, so having fire or water is just really strong there as well. So it's just more sustain with that kind of stuff, and then having that access to Lunker and stuff is just really strong for it. So the reason it's strong this patch, while it might not have been so good in the previous patches, first this Palpods thing, it really just negates the weakness, which is being big, being Holy Bursted and stuff like that, and then just working really well with the current Palpod situation where we have this burning effect being a big issue for pals being rescued. So just being part water ensures that they don't die in the pal pods, and just not taking burn damage is very strong. And then having this Thalassonic Laser being fixed means that you do have like one of the highest attack stat pals in the game with an extremely strong exclusive skill that is just strong against all the bosses except for Moonlord, as we're going to show in the next video. So you can see it does tend to get stuck a little bit, but most pals do get stuck on the pal pods. In this attempt here, I'm just trying out the more manual party pal and rescue team. Usually I have my rescue pals in the base with combat turned off, but I wanted to try this sort of thing where I do have a Rio, a Jet Dragon, and a Phalaris, because you want the Phalaris Aqua to put out the beds that are on fire. If you need rescuing against Libero, Rio, and Xenolord, you want this sort of watering pal. So I try to combine them. Like sometimes I send out Phalaris, put out a few fires, do some rescuing. If no beds are on fire, I would use the Jet Dragon, and then Rio as a sort of backup, because this is just my regular mount Jet Dragon. So you can see a couple of Neptilius goes down to some sort of skill. You send out the Jet Dragon, does really quick rescuing, absolutely zooming around full speed jet. Switch to the Phalaris, it puts out the fires. You can see the pals are kind of struggling because the beds are on fire, but they're not taking damage, they're just not healing. So they will keep on fighting at like 10% again and then die. So it's not a perfect situation, but you do have this like watering rescue pal. You could have also left it in the base, but then you use your sort of Jet Dragon to manually rescue your rescuers if they get randomly stone beated or holy burster or something like that. But there's a lot to explore with these rescue pals. It's a little bit of a changed rescue meta as well, with the burn effect and pals taking themselves to bed. So this is the more classic approach, let's say. Using my old Rios, not the Flares, because this is Moonlord. He doesn't seem to set the beds on fire, at least not that I've seen so far. So this is not an optimal raid base. I wanted to show something in this raid as well. So here we're using Dark Wisp, Beam Slicer, Hydro Slicer. Seems to be a really good skill combo against this Moonlord. Now you can see that the beds are in this sort of semicircle around Moonlord. So I don't suggest this setup, I wanted to show it here, where you probably want the beds like kind of underneath where I am or behind the boss. So let's see if we can see some sort of Neptilius going down. We can see one of them taking itself to bed, healing when low, pretty nice, so they don't die to like one or two of those lasers. Third laser, kill the one in the bed. So that's the kind of thing you want to avoid. Having those beds lined up with that big beam that it does across the fight. You can see the rescuing goes down, and then they both die there. So you probably just want those pal pods sort of grouped up right underneath where I am, or on the far side of the boss, and hope that that beam doesn't really line them up perfectly like that. Just kind of studying the rescuing here as an example. So if the previous example, I was using the party pals to rescue, then I would do that here. Just sort of land when pals go down, have Jet Dragon rescue them. Then you can always withdraw the Jet Dragon once you do see that beam come out. It seems to be like the dangerous one-shot skill for this boss really, but overall, like since there's no burn effect here, you can really see or highlight how bad burn is for your raid pals, why you want these water pals, because now no beds are on fire as well. I don't need to interact at all really, I can just sit here for the entire raid. He keeps doing his beam. You might be able to do something to get your pals to target the head first. I feel like the fights where pals target the head first just are super easy compared to these fights where they target one hand. Maybe they miss like their first two waves against the hand as well, have some bad luck, and then the head is just beaming like that. You can negate that with some pals that have a sort of travel skill, like Frostallion. Shadowbeak with Divine Disaster 2 is really good as well. They sort of spread out against that beam a little bit more, but you can sort of see, I feel like, he's not turning around when you're out here. So the pals that are rescued behind him seem to be just fine, I guess. Not sure if they're just not hitting or anything, but you can see the Dark Wisp just sort of covers the hand while it's closed. And then when the eye opens, all the wisps sort of hit. You can get that effect with like most Dark pals with their Dark Shot attack, Ice pals with Ice Missile, Icicle Bullet, stuff like that. But overall, I feel like the Slicer build has been better against the Ultra fight, or Master fight, not an Ultra boss. Something you can note here as well, the downside with using base pals as rescue pals. Now my Bastigors, not Bastigors, Blazamut Ryus are at negative sanity, they're 0 sanity, so they get this 80-second period where they take a break. So just mid-fight, every 80 seconds the game does the sanity check on base pals. If they're not in combat, they might take a break. So you can see both of them got triggered at the same time. Usually having two, it means that there's not like that big a chance that both go and slack off. But that's when it's nice to have this backup Jet Dragon that I'm flying around on. Sometimes I use Frostallion against Xenolord as well. So now the pals are slowly going down. The base pals, you can see the fight really slow down towards the end here when these rescue pals decided to take a break. So overall, like, the rescuing is better when it's a party pal, but then you're not doing player damage. It kind of depends how you want to tackle the fight. If you just want your raid army to do it for you or not. But you can see, it works. No player damage, got the 2 legendary schematics in one fight, so that's possible. But overall, a huge upgrade to this Neptilius. I think it is probably the best raid army right now, just overall for all the raid bosses, if you just want to breed one army for every raid. And then adding some rescue pals for Xenolord Ultra and Moonlord Master, where I'd suggest just Phalaris Aqua. It's a good one. Does put out the fires during the raid, or just using your party Jetragon or whatever in between as well. So that's it. Thanks for watching.